Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. A little bit of a different type of video today. Not a review of a TV show or a movie or anything, but we are going to be reviewing a news article or an article by Giant Freaking Robot that came to my attention over the weekend. Insulting, quite frankly. A YouTuber that I quite enjoy, who goes by the name George the Giant Slayer. The link for his channel will be in the description below. And the topic was on one of his more recent videos about the Rings of Power abomination that Amazon is currently in the, or is almost going to release. It's like a month out now. But yeah, so a little bit of a different type of video. But yeah, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video, I guess.
Okay, so here we have the article in question by Giant Freaking Robot. And on first glance, when it popped up on my phone, I thought, oh, okay, so a news site is actually gonna, discuss the real reason why Tom Shippey was actually fired from, consulting on the show. As it says here, Amazon fires Lord of the Rings scholar for trying to stop them from ruining Tolkien, ? By one Micheline Martin, who, yeah, well, let's just get into it. We'll see what kind of person this journalist, well, I use journalist very loosely, what kind of person they actually are. We've got a beautiful image here of our kick-ass action woman Galadriel from the trailer or the teaser where she says, "You have not seen." But the article then begins. There is a rumor starting to make the rounds about Amazon Prime Video's upcoming series, Lord of the Rings of Power. They should just scrap this because it's not actually Lord of the Rings. It's not even Tolkien, really. The rumor originates with YouTuber George Molho, as known as George the Giant Slayer, and this whole article basically insults George, the Giant Slayer, with accusations that are completely unfounded, because I have watched the video that they put in here, the video in question, and yeah, George is actually, from all the stuff that I've watched of him, he's awesome. I absolutely love the guy and his videos. On a lot of them he has little post-outro stories and things that are really cool and have actually inspired me a little bit as well. So definitely go and check him out. I will also put there should be a little thing that pops up on your screen where I will put a little info thing to go to the video in question of this trailer, of this article rather. Anyways, continuing on, and is being touted by Bounding Into Comics among others. Now, Bounding Into Comics is probably one of, if not the only, pop culture type news source place that I will actually go to read things from, because they are not shills for these big corporations. They're not, super overly political, zany, wacky, hardcore lefties or righties in this realm of pop culture. Not sure who the others are. I know that Bounding Into Comics has an article about it. According to George, eminent scholar Tom Shippey was fired from the production because he wouldn't stop warning the creators. They were. That should be that they were, quote unquote, polluting the law. From what we can tell, there are more trustworthy sources in the New Jersey Mob, the Legion of Doom, and the entire Attorney Bar Association than there are on George the Giant Slayer's YouTube account, but we'll let you know what he had to say regardless. This right here, this whole section, is basically just a big FU to the work that George does on his videos. I do not believe that George just pulls this stuff out of his rear. I do believe that he does research, and actually he does care about this stuff, so I don't think he would just pull things out of his butt. But I mean, I've read some of these sites, and they are in the same vein as Giant Freaking Robot. They absolutely suck. But as we continue, oh yeah, and here's the video in question, which is a good video on George's part, probably one of the best ones that I've seen of him to date. In a video posted earlier this week, so that would be last week, Mulho claims he's heard from 3 separate sources that Tom Shippey was not fired, as many had previously believed, from his consulting gig on the Rings of Power, just the Rings of Power, it's not Lord of the Rings, for violating a non-disclosure agreement by giving an unsanctioned interview to a fan site. Now, going back to this whole thing, it cannot be Lord of the Rings of Power, because all the stuff that they're doing with the Rings of Power, the stuff that it's going to be covering, has nothing to do with the story of the Lord of the Rings, outside of the fact that it builds up the whole story of the Lord of the Rings. It is literally a prequel. Second Age, Forging of the Rings, all that good stuff. Which is funny, because they've only actually got the rights to the Lord of the Rings stuff and the Hobbit stuff, which barely touches, as far as I know, on a lot of the important events of the Second Age. All that stuff is found in your Silmarillion, your Unfinished Tales, all those other additional books published by and edited by Christopher Tolkien and all that stuff, which are really good books. Not finished with the Silmarillion myself, but I am really enjoying reading the build-up to the stuff that we see in the Lord of the Rings books and in Peter Jackson's adaptation of it, because Peter Jackson's films are an adaptation of the books. Amazon's Rings of Power show is an adaptation of nothing. It's not adapting anything. They're making their own stuff up and just slapping a title that people love and want to watch and want to see more of. This is just what they do. This is how they do it. But anyways, I digress. Violating an non-disclosure agreement by giving an unsanctioned interview to fan site. Yep. Instead, according to Mulho, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, his 3 separate sources claim that Shippey was fired for weekly telling the Rings of Power runners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, who are just, they're idiots, that they were polluting the lore. The grammar's kind of all over the place on this article as well. You can watch his video for yourself if you enjoy. This is what got me when I first read it on Saturday during archery practice. If you enjoy consuming arguments as empty as the large percentage of most potato chip bags below. I do have to say one thing. It's all well and good to come against someone and say, you know, that their arguments are empty. Because I have seen arguments like that, and I am willing to admit that I have also given some empty arguments throughout my time. As long as you can back it up with your own substantial arguments, which this article does not. It gives absolutely no concrete and proper arguments of its own. In fact, its arguments, the person is projecting, basically, on George. They're projecting. George's arguments, when you actually, I do encourage you, watch the video. probably watch his video before you watch this one, because you'll see how just completely unfounded and stupid this article is. Because his arguments have substance. The stuff in this article doesn't have that. The stuff in this article has all this. They are as empty as a large percentage of most potato chip bags. They continue on. Right out of the cage, George the Giant Slayer clearly appears to have a religious agenda in his rumor spreading. No! I even made sure I even double checked the video. I watched it before sitting down to record this audio and video. Right out of the gate, he does not talk about anything religious. I'm pretty sure the whole video he doesn't talk about anything religious at all. He hints at it because obviously Tolkien was a very devout Catholic, and as a Christian, myself, not a Catholic but a Christian, so not too far removed, we don't usually go for a lot of the stuff that, George points out in the video that Amazon is doing, especially to Galadriel, their warrior princess crap, which she is not meant to be. So he does not do any of this in the video at all. He refers to in the beginning of the video to Amazon hiding their sins, and his main point of contention of the video is what he calls the new Lord of the Rings series. It's not Lord of the Rings. Carnal nudity and lascivious sexuality. Hiding their sins. Okay, this just shows how much this quote-unquote journalist is reaching for this. They are reaching really hard. Hiding their sins is used even by very stout and devout atheists, because it is a saying that gets a point across. It's a saying that gets a point across. Doesn't mean he was saying anything explicitly religious here, and I don't exactly remember him actually saying carnal nudity, lascivious sexuality, but he does talk about how the showrunners were asked, would this have Game of Thrones levels of nudity, violence, sex, all that kind of stuff, which wouldn't surprise me because Jeff Bezos said, bring me Game of Thrones. This is his Game of Thrones, and it's a complete and utter destruction of the beautiful works of Tolkien. An absolute destruction of it. But they say no, if you watch this video by George, which again, I recommend you do, they are going down that route. So the showrunners are blatantly lying in their interviews as well, which we should not be surprised about. This one ruffled my jimmies as well, because apparently, like the folks Gimli was talking about in The Two Towers, so Peter Jackson's vastly superior and timeless movie trilogy, Molho thinks in Middle-earth everyone is born by just springing out of holes in the ground. He didn't say that at all. This person is putting words in his mouth. At no point did he say that people in Middle-earth just pop up. And he wouldn't, because George, unlike myself, is quite well versed in his knowledge of Tolkien. He seems to have read a lot more of it than I have, which isn't surprising. I've really only just started my foray into the written works of Tolkien, whereas the movies and the games I am quite knowledgeable on. Stay tuned for a Lord of the Rings War in the North series that's coming to that I'll be putting on this channel. Stay tuned for that one. But he wouldn't say this because in Tolkien's works there are very detailed family trees, meaning some people had to get with some other people, have sexual relations to bring forth the other characters, but it's never explicitly shown or described in Tolkien's works. And I don't think anything like that should be said in any fantasy works, especially not for a show that J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, whatever the hell their names are, have said, we want it to be for 12 to 13 year olds who will occasionally have to cover their eyes because it will be too scary. No, It's not made for them because there is nudity. You see a full-on breast and nipple of Galadriel. You see her nude silhouette through her wet robes. If anyone's covering their eyes, it's going to be the parents who are sitting with their kids watching this show. Because that kind of stuff is really not appropriate for 12 to 13-year-olds to be watching. If 12 to 13-year-olds can't watch something starting with P and rhyming with corn, or in any capacity, whether that be photographs or videos, then they should not be able to see that stuff on TV. At all. It's ridiculous. Amazon's goal, in Mulho's words, is to snuff out the light. He sounds more like a preacher than any pop culture insider. He's using analogies and metaphors and things like that that fit with the topic. You read the Silmarillion. The Silmarillion, in its literally like its first few pages, is written out like a King James version of the Book of Genesis. This type of metaphor, this type of stuff, is just natural for talking about a fantasy work. It just is. It's just... Ugh. This article hurts to read because this person is just... They're projecting and they're grasping at straws. Of course, regardless of his agenda, the only agenda that George had in his videos and in any of his videos about the Rings of Power is to protect Tolkien's work. Because at the end of the day, Tolkien did not write The Lord of the Rings or any of the stories of Arda and Middle-earth for entertainment. That was not his original goal. Tolkien originally wrote all the stories and the whole world of Arda and all the mythology and everything around it to stand in place of the lost and missing mythologies of his ancestral people, of the ancestral people of Britain, of England, the people who lost their mythology, or it was consumed or changed because they just got conquered so many times. The only agenda here is trying to save the sanctity of that. It's just like if someone was to go to African mythology and screw with that, or go to native Australian Aborigine mythology and screw around with that, or any other European mythology. Heck, even if they went to go to a Roman or a Greek mythology and screw around with that, there would be some backlash to it. Because they are, cultural aspects to that. And that is what Tolkien tried to write with all his Middle-earth stuff. And it shows. It's why they're timeless. A lot of the stories that are in all those other mythologies are still timeless today because they have timeless ideas and themes to them. Just like why Peter Jackson's films are so timeless even now, 21 years from when they were made. Because PJ did not want to put his own ideas in, didn't want to put his own themes in. At least not to an extent where they would overshadow Tolkien's ideas, Tolkien's themes, the original themes of the work. But Amazon's show, The Rings of Power, will not be timeless. It will be lost to the ages like so many other shows that have come before it, and so many that will come after it. Because they're ruining things. They think they can write a better story than what already exists. He could still be right, but the fact that he treats facts the same way Ezra Miller treats their career doesn't help make his point. Oh my... I'm just not even gonna... That's... just... no. This person is trying too hard. And these people wonder why we as consumers, we as fans, don't trust the garbage they shovel out. This is what they do. Before showing his receipts, Mulho claims new photos emerged showing that Amazon was hiding its sinful practices. The photos he refers to didn't emerge. The Lord of the Rings of Power images were given to Collider by Amazon, which seems like a pretty strange way to hide something. Again, grasping at straws. Emerged doesn't always... Something can emerge because it's given to someone. Okay, that is something that can happen. Technically, leaks that emerge are given to people. So, what are you trying to say here, person writing this stupid article? He later says that Jeff Bezos told Variety in 2017 that he wanted the next Game of Thrones, but if you bother to read the story he's referring to, Jeff Bezos didn't tell Variety anything. The site refers to unnamed sources telling them what Bezos allegedly said. There are more than just that one article that showed that Jeff Bezos said things along the lines of, I want to make the next Game of Thrones, or bring me Game of Thrones. There is so much evidence of that out there on the internet. Not that hard to find. But of course this is a shill media site. Yes, and this is one of the images that he shows. You can probably see it a little bit here, but George makes a better point of going into it in his own video. Again, go check his video out. He's absolutely awesome and amazing. This horribly sinful image he refers to, by the way, yeah, it's the photo above. There's Morford Clark, who's playing Galadriel in Rings of Power, lost at sea, holding her hands out. This image, in which you can barely see Galadriel's face, much less any other parts of her, is what Mulho calls a wet t-shirt contest. We really hope he's able to handle it when he finds out there may be scenes in the series when women show ankles and elbows. Excuse me. This is just horrible. Absolutely horrible. You can clearly see her face, and I'm not even on fully zoomed in, so if I just fully zoom into 100 here, you can more than clearly see her face, and you can even see clear physical outline of her body, which is not at all in line with Tolkien and his writings. At all. There's a reason why Peter Jackson didn't put any of this kind of stuff in his films. Because it didn't fit. It wouldn't work. Because, especially for a woman like Galadriel. This is a perversion of the source material. Nudity and this kind of stuff is not a Tolkien thing at all. It wouldn't be out of place in a show like, or a franchise like The Witcher, where we have some very nice looking female characters. People who are fans of the games will know who I'm talking about. But this doesn't match. Nowhere in either PJ's treatment of the source material, or even in the books, do we have anything like this, where we see the characters, especially female characters, like that, in compromising outfits. But it's not the worst of it. And I encourage you to watch more of his videos, watch some European lore videos on this stuff, even watch the trailers and stuff for yourself, and see what I mean. And this is just disgusting. We really hope he's able to handle it when he finds out that there may be scenes in the series when women show ankles and elbows. He's not necessarily saying that this is a bad thing. It's just a bad thing because it is so out of place, and because of how it's being used and where it's being used. he calls it a perversion of the legendarium. A perversion of the lore, which having Galadriel like that does pervert the lore and the legendarium. It does. Anyways, that's the end of this completely garbage article by Micheline Martin from Giant Freaking Robot. Yeah, this is just ridiculous. Yet another Amazon shill website attacking fans and attacking fan creators who actually have worries about the show. Real people who have real love and respect and adoration for this whole concept of Arda that Tolkien brought about, which was literally his life's work. People were talking about, oh, this is my life's work, this is my magnum opus. No, the stories contained within his Arda, within Middle-earth, within all the books that he's done, and extended upon in the games, that although not canon, are nowhere near as egregious as this show. Because they at least still follow the same type of thread. But, you know, it's ridiculous. Yeah, just don't support Amazon by watching this stuff. Really. After what happened with the Wheel of Time, I don't have any hope for this show, especially after all this stuff. But there was one other thing that I wanted to discuss with you all. And that is something I discovered while browsing Reddit because I was bored last night. And I follow, or I've joined the Lord of the Rings Reddit community, and I saw this this post on it. The opening lines of the new trailer are in iambic tetrameter, one of Tolkien's favorite meters. It's details like this that make me hopeful for the show. And then below they show a tweet of the Digital Tolkien Project atting the Tolkien Professor, who is a whole other can of worms in of himself, just like many other people. This is just reaching. If this is what you claim to be something that, if this is meant to be like a whole big thing, but yet an article like what we've just read complains about someone talking about something that they see as exactly as minimalistic as something like this, what the hell are these people thinking? Now this talk about coping and seething. This is reaching something cruel. If this is how desperate you are for more Lord of the Rings content, go read the books. Like, how can you say that you're hopeful for the show because of lines in a trailer that has so many other problems with it, video about that coming out at some point too, and yet this is the one thing that gives you hope for the show? Lines of dialogue in a trailer that are just put together in the trailer that won't be, most likely, or more than likely, will not be spoken anywhere near closely linked to each other in the actual show. And this is what gives you hope for the show. It's ridiculous. This is so freaking dumb. It's not even that hard to adapt a show well, or to take creative liberties with it. I mean, just look at Netflix's Castlevania animated series. Something that I would herald as the best, or one of, if not the best, video game adaptation into a visual medium outside of video games that I have ever had not just the joy, but the privilege of enjoying. and you compare that to the games, you wouldn't be able to tell. You would not be able to tell. But they do it well because they respect aspects of the source material. This just doesn't. This just doesn't at all. Anyways, that's about all the painful article that I could read today, and all the just weak attempts to say that the show's going to be good, or that there's still some hope for the show that I can take for today. It's a beautiful day outside. I don't know, I might take advantage of it, or maybe I'll just sit down and record more audio for videos for the rest of the week and into next week. But yeah, as I said, check out George the Giant Slayer, European Lore as well. They have some really good videos on this stuff. Obviously, Night's Watch, go watch their stuff about Rings of Power and the Wheel of Time if you want more examples of Amazon butchering a classic and well-beloved fantasy IP. They've got all that up on Night's Watch. I'll link these channels in the description below, so it's easier for you guys to find them. But yeah, also stay tuned for more little bits and bobs on the Rings of Power stuff. Yeah, and stay tuned for that start of a Lord of the Rings War in the North gameplay. Anyways, that's all I've got for now. So yeah, see you later, guys.